Welcome to another episode of 9 to 5 Faith. Today I am joined by Mari Ramsey. He is someone who I'm so excited for you guys to listen to. He works at a Christian nonprofit that serves his local community, and Mari is here to share the joys and challenges of a faith-based ministry, as well as the importance of maintaining a strong personal relationship with God. This conversation explores work-life balance, and we talk about hearing God's voice and the transformative power of worship. I really hope you enjoy this conversation, so let's dive right in. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are you doing today, Paige?
Doing good, doing good. So tell us a little bit about yourself, besides the fact that you had to drive a lot this week, which also sucks.
So of course, my name is Mari. I am a program manager for a nonprofit named Joy Closet. It's a nonprofit that focuses on foster kids who are aging out of the system, foster kids in general, those in kinship care, adoption, and children in crisis. And so I'm a program manager within the company that takes kids who are aging out, pairs them with a good mentor, and then sends them off with that mentor who's made a 1-year commitment with them. And that allows the mentees to get a foot into a world where they would not have had that if they were to continue on without it. And so the statistics for that is really high. By the time a male turns 21 in the foster care system, if they were to age out, 82% of them actually get locked up by the time they turn 21. And then the pregnancy rate for females is high by the time they turn 21 also. That's in about the mid 70s. And so it's a heartbreaking situation. And so I get to come along Joy Closet and, just help pair those mentees with somebody who can help develop the gifts on the inside of them and help them become more of who they want to be.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so needed. That is so needed. And I mean, I know like the numbers kind of fluctuate, but I'm here in Arizona, and I know just like our foster system is just like completely overloaded. And I know that's a big problem of like when they do age out. So that's a really awesome work. How did you kind of find yourself in that company, in the industry?
So actually, for the past 2.5 years, I've worked in a factory, which is absolutely crazy that, the transition was almost immediate. So I've always been really a public speaker since I was about 14, 15 years old. No, I'll take it back, 15, 16 years old. I was in foster care myself from 14 to 15 years old. And so there's always been just a heartache for that area. But like I said, for the past 2.5 years, I've actually worked in the factory. And throughout that 2.5 years, I've developed a love for this generation and the youth in this generation. And as I went about life, my story, I'm a musician and a worship leader also. And so, I take all those things and I try to create something and build something that I could help tailor towards everyone else in this generation. And so in that, while I was working in this factory, I was literally just trying to find ways that I could minister in my job. And so with it being 5 o'clock mornings till 3:30 in the afternoon, to say that there isn't time would be, a lie almost. Once you try to mash the two, I believe is where we find a lot of conflict. These are two separate things. You got to find a balance between the both. And so what it looked like for me was, get home 3:30, 4 o'clock, shower, and then sit down and try to develop something, a plan, a schedule, something that would help feed this aching and this hurt and this burden that I was blessed with. And I say blessed because I don't believe it's a bad burden. I believe it was a good burden. But you take this and you try to develop something that'll help. And so for 2.5 years, that's what I did. And so throughout that period of time, I saved all my vacation time, would bank it all in the summer, and then travel. That way I could feed that aching on the inside of me. And so that turned into me getting in touch with that nonprofit, Joy Closet, August of last year. So 2022, I spoke at their banquet, shared my story in foster care. We had previous contact, me and the CEO of the company, just kind of talking and discussing some things and how she could make the program better. August, I spoke at their banquet, and at the end of the banquet, after the whole event is over, she stopped me before I walked out of the building. She said, "We're going to keep in touch. I feel like you're going to be working for me pretty soon." And so I said, "I would love to." And so,
That's
from my
amazing.
heart, I was ready to get out of the factory, and so I was
Yeah.
truly just anticipating that. And so March of this year, 2023. I get the phone call saying, which is a more, a rather sad but bittersweet phone call that one of the directors was diagnosed with cancer. And
Mm.
so I came along in March part time, working a factory job and a coffee shop job, and trying to pursue ministry. And trying to find the balance between all of those was, I mean, just hard.
Yeah.
Because now you're not just fighting the two things where you could find time. Now you're struggling to get the time back where you've given so much. And so
Yeah.
June, I ended up quitting the coffee shop and the factory job and started working full time this early July this past month. And
Oh,
so
wow.
it was
Yeah.
all just a snowball of things, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I believe it was 100% worth it because
Ugh.
I love what I'm doing now, helping
Yeah.
these people come up and raise them up into just a place where they feel confident and they love themselves.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an amazing story. And also, like you said, early July, I like had to look at the day. I was like, dang, that was really soon. That was just like
Yeah.
a month and a half ago. That's amazing. Well, yeah, that's really cool. And also, I hear your heart behind everything that you do, and it's really powerful to, share from your experiences and your testimony. And like, I feel like in your case, it's helping you be a better employee.
Yes,
And it,
yes.
like, of course, like minister better and serve better, but also like you're able to do your job more successfully and more efficiently and more intentionally because you have gone through what you went through.
Yeah, and it's an experience and a story that I can take with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
As I sing and speak in camps and youth events and stuff like that, the one thing I always try to remember is that a lot of these kids have been just as broken, or if not more, than I've ever been.
Yeah.
But the one thing that has pulled me out of just acknowledging my brokenness is love.
Mm.
And so if I could learn to love in such a way, I don't have to hit a home run every time I speak or every time I sing. But if I could just love, then that'll be the thing that they see and they're like, wow, I hear this. And now I see the other side of it. And, maybe them seeing me be so passionate, maybe them seeing me be so loving and caring and kind will be the yes that they need so that they can say yes to whatever God's calling them to.
Yeah, and also like the demonstration and the example that you are walking and that you are living to overcome those really harsh statistics
Mhm.
of ending up in the prison system or single motherhood or whatever it is.
Right.
That you are like a walking talking example of like saying like, yes, like I know what you're going through and I've been there. And I think that's just like really cool that God is kind of weaving that through your life and what you're doing. And yeah, just like a really awesome example of that. Is the organization you work for a Christian organization?
Yes.
Okay, it is. That's really, I always like to preface the conversation kind of with that lens because I think
Mm,
that the way that we operate and that we do our job looks different with
mm.
if it's a Christian business or if it's
Yeah.
a business ran by Christians, right?
Yeah.
They're different things. I always like to say, do you know Angela Johnson? She's a stand-up comedian.
No.
She's like, she has this thing where she goes, I'm a comedian who's a Christian. I'm not a Christian comedian. Like, I don't say Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John walked into a bar. Like, she does this in such a great way, and I love it so much. And I'm like, yes, I am stealing that and referring to that often. So in what ways does the company kind of engage a Christian worldview in the work that you're doing?
So, Actually, I'll share one of the struggles that we've had even here recently, and maybe that'll
Yeah.
give you a good, insight. So we do a lot of in-house church events across the community.
Okay.
But as we began doing more within the church, we realized how hard it was to get unchristians or people who are not Christians, so non-Christians, into the church.
Yeah.
So we started hosting events outside of the church,
Gotcha.
but still had the church come and serve in the midst of that. So we just had a back to
Gotcha.
school bash this past Saturday, and we
Okay.
had a church come in and serve. We do mother son Nerf wars. We're doing an American Ninja Warrior community event this upcoming fall. But we do all of this so that the way the church can all come together as a community, not as, like just Baptist, non-denominational, Assembly of God. No, we give them a way for everyone to come in, get
Gotcha.
involved, and serve. And
Yeah.
so, if that kind of gives you an idea.
Yeah. And I feel like too, like that helps kind of cross two obstacles at once of like the first one being like a denomination barrier where people are
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it's at a Baptist church, so it must be a Baptist, organization or whatnot.
Right.
And then there's the other one of like getting the community members involved of like, oh, it's at a church. There might be a stigma or a history there that they're not
Yeah.
necessarily comfortable with. And
Exactly.
I don't think that should limit their interactions with, your organization or like the
Mm-hmm.
foster kids either.
100%.
What about the way that like the company is ran? Like in terms of, I know like a lot of Christian organizations, you do a statement of faith when you
Mm-hmm.
apply and all of that. Talk to us a little bit about that. I actually think you're one of the first people I've had on here who has worked for like a Christian organization.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
uh, so I wouldn't say we have a statement of faith. You know, those who do work, within the company. So our boss, known Christian, she's made her, she's just known to be a Christian. And same with
Yeah.
the rest of our coworkers. We all love God. That's one thing that we all have in common. Huh.
Like,
But I
do
would
you
have to say,
pray together or like, you know what
oh
I
yes,
mean? Okay.
we
Yeah.
have we have two Heathers that work there. So I can't really share which Heather I'm talking about, I guess. But one of the Heathers, a lot of times, our boss was in the middle of, she's been in the process of selling a house. And she said, all right, everyone come into the office. We're going to pray. Hey, let's pray before the workday. In fact, today, whenever I walked into their office, they were like, hey, next week, we're going to start doing daily walks. We're going to walk together, pray together, and just do Pilates at the end. And so, we just try to, one, encourage, Christian living. And then two, we also just try to or make that a part of our day, but then also keep our own lifestyles to God,
Yeah. Yeah, for
but
sure.
yeah. And so we try to just keep relationship in every aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And while you were talking, I had this statistic that I wanted to pull up because either fostering or supporting families who foster or supporting foster like agencies or
Mm-hmm.
outreach groups like Joy Closet. I got that right. Yeah. Joy
Mm-hmm.
Closet is really important to me. I've done a ton of kind of volunteer work over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And this one statistic, I actually cannot get my brain wrapped around it. But there's something like 443,000 US kids in foster care right now. I don't have the date on this article, but when this article was written, 443,000 kids in foster care. And there's something like 400,000 churches in America.
Wow. Just
I'm
imagine
like,
if every church took a kid.
one
Yes, yes.
kid, one kid. Like, that's what like blows my mind. I'm like, it's like 1.02 kids. Like, that's all you need to involve with. And
Yes.
it's that number where I'm just like, like it gets me so pumped up because I love that work that you guys are doing because it's making a difference kind of on a smaller scale. And like little, and I don't want to diminish the work that you're doing, but
Mhm.
like doing it on a very like a one by one kind of
Right.
scale. Because it's, are you going to solve, all of the incarceration rates that, the foster care
Right.
system has? You know, God can, yes.
Yeah.
But with your current reach and capacity, probably not. But like for that one kid that
hmm
you did save from, being incarcerated or who ends up being pregnant as a single mother, like you're helping change that one life. So
Right. And
that's
I think the
awesome.
beauty that I find in Joy Closet is that, so whenever those kids, those foster kids or foster families come in, it's like a Ross. It's like an in-office
Mm,
Ross. They get to walk down the halls, go to the room that identifies with them. So we've got a boys' room, a baby room, a girl room, a
yeah.
hygiene room, and we just have all of these rooms. And they walk in, and it's just full of clothes, and the hallways are full of toys, and it's just full of everything that we have. And
Yeah.
they just get to shop everything there for free.
Yeah.
And so they do not have to pay a dime whenever they go in there, but we're just there to serve
Yeah.
those people. And so whenever people want to foster and they, take in new placements and things of that sort, they just come straight on in there and they're like,
Yeah.
hey, I just got a new placement. The DCBS and the state come in and they're like, hey, we got 3 new
Mm,
placements come in today. In fact, it happened to me last week where she gives me a call an hour before she comes to the office, says she needs to shop for a 6-week-old. The moment she steps up those stairs and walks to the door, she said, hey, I just got a 9-year-old also. And so we made it happen for them. And so I think that's the beauty of the nonprofit. And I think that's why
yeah.
I love working for them because they're there to serve. We're
Yeah.
there to serve and love that community.
Yeah. And I just think of, Jesus's ministry and like what he went out with, like, um, I was cold, so you gave me clothes. I was hungry, so you gave me something to eat. And I think
hmm
that like those really practical ways of serving people is kind of underestimated in terms of like the ministry work that we do of like, just going out and being really um really just practical in our application. There's a domestic violence women's shelter up by where I live. And one
hmm
thing that I love that they do, which Joy Closet might do as well, is like it's some people have the tendency to treat it like a Goodwill where they're just going to like donate all their stuff. But
Yeah.
this one organization, it's called House of Refuge. They are very picky and very particular with what they take in terms of donation because the women and kids that are, fleeing their homes, starting over,
hmm
like anything that is given to this house of refuge, they get to take with them
hmm
as they go and like kind of start their new life from scratch. Um, they don't want them to have second best.
Right.
Like they want them to feel valued
hmm
and feel worthy of like like good quality stuff and not just like stuff with rips and tears and
Right.
all
Yeah.
that stuff in it, like, and so just that has been like really a beautiful kind of demonstration of even like first fruits, right? Let's talk about
Yeah.
that, of like
Ooh, yes.
giving the first fruits of what you have and
hmm
not leaving like the leftover as your sacrifice, but it's the first and best of what you have.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, because you sound like you wear many hats, and I'm assuming that you do because
Yes.
you're also on here. How do you kind of balance all of that and make sure that like you're returning to God as your center?
uh, in simplicity, in a natural aspect, use a calendar. It's so needed. But I believe what you do naturally manifests spiritually. And so if I can, keep my natural life intact and make sure, whenever I wake up in the morning, I'm spending time with God. That's a relationship that comes first. So when I wake up, it's in my word, praying to God, and, just making sure that there's that balance first off. And if I can't spend time with God, then something else has to go. But, it starts with that. I believe that, before anything, we're called to love God and then love others. And so in that, first comes God, but then after comes the many things that I have to deal with, because a lot of times there are things that I said yes to. And so that's where the calendar comes into play for me. And it's such a key thing. And over the past 2 years, I've learned how to make it just phenomenal thing in my ministry and in my life and in my workplace. And so really, it's been a calendar outside of my relationship with God. It's been allowing, it's almost the way that I view tithing. So the way I view tithing is, give your 10% and then ask God what to do with the other 90. Pay your bills, do everything else, and still let God guide you on what to do with the other 90, whether that's give to a nonprofit, give to a child, and, here or there, donate, whatever the case may be. And so that's the way I view my time. Give God your time in the morning, the time that's set out for him. And then just pray as you go about your day. Pray as you have those things that you schedule. Pray as I go on to this podcast. Pray as I go and sing at this church and speak in this Celebrate Recovery. And, just allowing God to lead you in every aspect. But, it all falls back on that simple time you spend with God in the morning. As he leads and guides your steps in the morning, I believe prayer literally sets out the path and the stone pavement before us. That way, whenever we go, those steps of faith are possible because we know who laid the foundation. And so, God, calendar, those are like my two.
I love it. And also, like, when you know something and then someone says it in some way that you're just like, oh, like, and plus you just did that for me because I mean, I've always yes, morning Devo time. And I know some people are like, it doesn't have to be in the morning and all that stuff. Cool. Whatever. I'm not going to start some fights here in the comments, or leave a comment, because no one comments on this stuff. So if you feel really passionately about it, leave me a review and I'll clap back at you or whatever. Anyways, I think of Psalm 23, right? Where he leads me by still waters. And he takes me out in the morning. And I read a book and it talked about the importance of sheep getting water in the morning and the abundance of water that is on the grass and all that stuff. And it just was that is what sustains you for the day. But what you just said also of also going back to my reference of first fruits, your first time in the day, your first 10% of the day. And I have never considered it like that before. Of this is the first, you have 24 hours of a day, and the first 10% that you wake up, you should give to God. I'm gonna have to chew on that.
And then even to fall back on Psalms 23, it talks about how he leads you. And, he's the shepherd. And so the way that I've always viewed or tried to view Psalms 23, later on in that text, it talks about how there's wolves and there's enemies and, those things are out there. But who knows the wilderness better than the shepherd?
Right.
And so he knows what enemies are out there. But how would you ever know if you never went to meet with the shepherd in the first place?
Yeah.
You have to go to the shepherd first.
Yes. More of yes.
We haven't even got to the 90 to Jesus leaving the one to find the 99. You haven't even met Jesus that morning yet. So how would you be able to?
How would he leave you?
Yes. Yeah.
How would he leave you if you're not there?
Yes.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm gonna have to noodle on that one for a while because well, and if anyone's listening to this before, they probably heard me talk about this where the pastor at my church, he says the two biggest things that especially in American culture that we value the most is our time and our tithe. So it's how do you spend your time and how do you spend your money? And those two things will show you where your affections are.
Wow.
And so, he's throat punchy is his words, but Oh yeah, he leans in. But like, yeah, it's true, like, where do I spend most of my work or most of my time at work? And where do I spend most of my money? Right. And those
Right.
two things will show where my heart is and where my priorities are. And so like when it's taking that into time of like, we are supposed to give God our first fruits, but it's not just of money, it's also of time.
Yes, yes, yes.
My
I think that's the
gosh.
beauty because I mean we go on dates with boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives.
Yeah.
We go on dates with our friends. Um, we can do the same with God. I mean,
Yes.
we have this concept of us being the bride as the church and him being the groom. But how could we ever nurture a relationship that we're not willing to give time to, willing to pray into? We talk all about, lives of worship, lives of devotion, but let's build lives of prayer and, like just
Yeah.
communicate and conversate with God
Yeah.
because, there is no one that's going to comprehend you better than Jesus. No one,
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody.
Yeah. And I think too, like when we look at what our relationship with God is, it's a relationship. And like when you think about your earthly relationships, you don't get to know anyone by just talking at them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I just sat here and ran this whole thing and you were on this other side, guess what? Like I would learn nothing about you.
Right.
I wouldn't learn your likes or your dislikes or your passions or your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't be able to learn what you want to learn about me or vice versa. And so like when I even talk about like spending time with God, it's like, no, like, do you enter into conversation and do you get to know him like you get to know your friends?
Right.
And that's so important. Funny enough, this isn't a little aside because I have all of those just firing off in my head 24/7. There's this guy who it's just an account I follow on Instagram, and he like posted this like really cute reel where he like had like a picnic and he was like
Mm-hmm.
date with Jesus, blah blah blah. Low key though, he like didn't, it was just kind of like a bird's eye view on like the scene that he was setting. But like, of course, me being the nerd that I am, he like goes in and he has like an entire case of like a little like to go container of beverages. Just like different beverages, like
Yeah.
like a hot coffee, a large iced tea, and like a soda and like a thing from Chick-fil-A or something like that. And I commented, like, I'm like, here he is, like, trying to be like super, like, spiritual and like, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, go on a date with Jesus. That's cool too.
Right.
And here I am, like, how many beverages do you have? Like, I'm just paying attention to how many beverages you have, and I'm
Yeah.
here to support it.
if
There are
we
like
could
200 likes. Not the video, my comments. I was dying.
I love that. But
So
if
great.
we if we could imagine even that doing that spiritually,
Yeah.
just imagine the impact we'd have in our own lives.
Yeah.
Just imagine the impact. Because I mean, we talk about relationship. It's not just a lot of times we're just like, okay, I've got to pray to God this whole time. No, God's pouring back into you. So imagine if we could do the same spiritually and bring the picnic of our lives,
Yeah.
feed God with all that we have, just give back to God.
Yeah.
Just imagine what He'd fill our picnic baskets back up with as we go back to
Yeah.
retreat, back to our lives and our homes and our churches.
Yeah, for sure. And I love asking this question. It's random. It has nothing to do with nothing. But how do you hear God?
How do I hear?
Like, how does God speak to you?
So a lot of
Besides
times,
through his word, like that's like
yeah,
I'm talking
yeah.
about like you individually.
A lot of times it's impressions. I feel like I hear them a lot of times in moments.
Hmm.
And so my prayer a lot of times is give me the desires of your heart. And so it's just me praying, God, hey, just give me the desires of your heart. And the Bible says that He'd give us the desires of our hearts, but that's not Him saying that He's going to allow us to have what we want to have. It's Him saying,
when our will aligns with His, then we get the desires of our hearts.
Yes. And so one of my mentors, she always tells me, she says, in our flesh, we never have any good ideas.
Right.
In our flesh, we just don't have good ideas. And so you really just and a lot of times we, start pinning stuff on the enemy and and just the devil, and be like, oh no, the devil didn't want me to have this or anything. But a lot of times we can be the block in the road, and our minds can do that also. And so it took me learning even just that, knowing that my mind can be a problem and the devil can also be a problem.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned to do now is just pray through it all. If I'm in the wrong, I can accept that. If the devil's in the wrong, okay, screw him. Go on about my day. Because how could I ever know that I've heard God if I can't decipher the other two?
Yeah.
If I can't know that it was my mind, if I can't know that it was the devil, if I can't know if it was God, because I've always taught on this concept of being broken, that sometimes God breaks you, but it's not to hurt or harm you, but to place you where you need to be. But many of us would go along that road and say, hey, the devil did that to me, and that completely ruined me, that heartbreak, that divorce, that, the list goes on. But once we learn to decipher the three, the mind, the devil, and God, I believe that's whenever we just truly start to even just develop relationship with God. But we can't develop that if we don't pray to him. And so a lot of times it's impressions for me. A lot of times it's just I feel like I hear him most in conviction. So which is like, even almost hurtful a lot of times, because just to feel that conviction and that hurt, knowing that, I've potentially hurt God, or I've hurt God, period. And so conviction, I sit down with my mentors a lot of times, and a lot of times it's just because Proverbs speaks of seeking wise counsel. And so it's almost weekly or daily that I'm texting my mentors, calling my mentors at their house with my mentors, just with the list of things, be like, hey, what do I do next? What is this? What do I need to do in my life right now? What would be best in my relationship with God right now as I pursue these different avenues? And they've never led me astray. And so when we don't feel like we're hearing God, my advice would be trust a mentor to give you the advice, the counsel that you need to go about your life, because you may not be able to hear God, but as you go through your situations, you may be able to find God in the midst.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I always like to ask that question because, like, I don't know if it's how God communicates with my sister on an ongoing basis, but she gets dreams. She straight up gets dreams, and it is crazy and trippy because, like, I won't tell the whole story, but pretty much, like, I was almost a victim of an attack where I was like chased by a person when I was I was almost attacked one night when I was on a hike, and my sister calls my mom the next day and goes, hey, like, have you talked to Paige? Is everything okay? Or she's like, I had the weirdest dream about Paige last night. Is everything okay? And my mom's like, have you talked to her? And my sister's like, no, why? She's like, oh yeah, she had to call the cops. She got like chased down a mountain by a strange man the other day. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. She had no idea. But for me, like, I know some people like hear God through worship and like hear God. For me, God interrupts my thoughts. That's how he talks to me, is like when I'm just like chilling and then I get this like random thought out of nowhere. I'm like, okay, Jesus, what up? Like, how's it going? It'll just be like the strangest thing. I remember one really big time that God spoke to me was it already? Oh my gosh, it was only a year ago. It was like a year and a half ago when I changed jobs. And my husband and I were at a cabin up in the mountains, and I was like standing there, I was like looking at the stars, and I was like, this is so pretty. And I just had this thought from God, and it was, everything's going to be okay.
Wow.
God, nothing's wrong right now. I ended up getting kind of like booted out of my job, and it was like this whole dramatic and emotional time. But he told me everything's going to be okay when nothing was wrong. And I was like, okay, fine.
So I've actually had similar experiences where he's interrupted my thoughts. But as you mentioned, worship, as a worship leader, those I feel like are the most that's like the time where I feel like he speaks the most to me.
Mm,
I've always been observant, and I've always learned
yeah.
to watch and things like that. And so growing up in a mixed culture church where there's youth down to newborn all the way up to adults that are 90 years old, you see a lot. So in today's culture, I've learned to observe, the rooms that I'm in. So if I'm at a youth event, I know how to observe, how they respond and things
Yeah.
like that. And I feel like that has taught me to listen to God in those moments. And so I think that has set me up to listen to God well. And like a couple of weeks ago, I was in a particular service and I felt like I hit a wall in worship. And I took it back to my mentors. I'm like, no, I felt like I hit a wall right here. I just don't know what it was. And they just simply told me maybe because it was a wall. And maybe
Yeah.
you were the one that felt that wall simply because you're going to be the one that breaks that wall. And
Yeah.
so that was the counsel I needed to know, like, hey, maybe that was God showing me in worship that that wall just needed to be broken. And one thing my pastor told me years ago was that a lot of times God places problems on certain people's hearts because they're going to be the problem solvers
Mm, yeah.
through God and through Christ. And so worship is such an influential space for me because I picked up my first guitar in
Mm,
foster care. And so that was the place where I was most broken. So I've learned how to feel music well because that's the
mm,
one thing that helped me um, pursue leading worship. And so,
yeah.
um, no, worship is like I hear God so well, and a lot of
Yeah.
times it may not even be for the people. A lot of times it's me getting on my knees and like just thanking God and praising Jesus and turning around and just worshiping the wall because
Yeah.
focusing on the people is not what I need to be doing right now. But
Right.
the beauty of it is that my relationship with God, it's I don't know, in worship, it's just magnified, I feel like, in my own
Yeah.
life. Just hearing him and just hearing his voice. And I felt like this past Sunday, I was even hearing angels just singing with the rest of
Mm,
the people. And and I just wanted to just keep closing my eyes because I didn't want to open my eyes and just angels not be there. And so I almost just waited till the song ended so that way I
yeah.
can just remain captivated
Yeah.
in who he is and all of heaven,
Mm,
just heaven touching earth that morning. And so
yeah.
I believe
Love
in
that.
worship moments, he just reveals so much to me that it's not, of course, it's not seen with the naked eye, but it just has to be experienced. Yet it feels tangible. It just has to be experienced in the moment. And so you just
Right.
remain captivated.
Yeah, absolutely. And besides the fact that worship people are like incredibly talented, because I cannot carry a note worth my life. Um, I cannot, like, I don't even like to sing in the car by myself because I'm like, I'm just that bad.
Not
Um,
even the shower.
nope, nope, car, shower, nowhere. But like I also give you guys props because like I'm like whenever there's a real emotional worship set, I'm like choking back tears. Y'all, I give you guys props for like not being broken down every time you're leading worship.
No, it takes so much,
I'm sure
um,
it does.
as much as I want to uh, in some moments it calls for being emotional and allowing yourself to be open. Other
Yeah,
moments it's like you have to lead because if I could, I'd cry every Sunday. I'd cry
right.
every Wednesday. I'd cry every service.
Yeah.
But I have a call to lead worship, and so it takes so much. And
Mm,
I mentor my little brother in worship a lot of times, and what I tell him is that the you will only be able to go as far as you allow yourself to go.
mm.
And one thing, one of my biggest worries is having a band that does not know what they're doing.
Okay.
And yeah, and so and I say that only to follow up with um, allow the people who are serving behind you and with you to take over. Have your moment. Spend time with
Yeah.
Jesus. If you trust them, go further with God by yourself. You do not have to go
Yeah.
further with the band. Take that moment and experience God.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think too that's just like the kind of reaffirmation of having kind of that private time with God of like where you can just, not that you're being performative in any sense, but like you're leading. I think that's like a
Right.
really great way to put it, is like in that moment you're leading. And so in the moment where you don't have to lead, that's also where you're able to kind of connect deeper with God.
100%. Yes.
Okay. What worship song are you like hot on right now?
Oh, man, there's a number, and I wish I could place my finger on one. Um, but there's one called Paul and Silas by Naomi Rain and Chandler Moore. They sing it. It's called Paul and Silas, or they have another name for it called In the Midnight, I think. But the bridge of it just simply says, "I won't let a rock cry out for me." And I take that to like the heart. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm not praising loud enough, or if I'm not praising, period,
Right.
I refuse to let a rock cry out for me. If I can't sing, I'm gonna dance. If I can't dance, I'm gonna jump. If I can't jump, I'm gonna crawl. I'm gonna do something, because I almost take it as a threat. And like, if you don't, the rock will. And like, I just can't hear that and just be happy with the fact that a rock's going to sing my praises for me, because God's just been too good for me.
Yeah.
And so whenever it hits that part of the bridge, me and my little brother, we were on our way from a camp in Texas. We were on our way back to Kentucky. And literally that song was just released maybe a week or two beforehand. And when it reached that part, he said, "I won't let a rock." And I literally screamed in the car, because God's just been too good. And so that's like my top worship song right now.
I love it.
It's just beautiful.
Oh, that's great. I've really been digging Ann Wilson, mostly because I love country music, and her stuff is what I wish all country music was like, where like it's like all Jesus-y, but it's also like straight up country music. And I love that. But then also, this is a throwback, but I heard it on the radio, and usually like radio stations like they'll play like old classics, but they won't play mostly like they play like new stuff. And they played Give Me Faith by Elevation Worship. Right. It was a throwback.
Yes.
I was like, wait, I haven't heard this song since I was in like high school ministry. Like, what is this? And so I've been just like rocking. I don't like their version very well, but that song. Anyways, it was all kinds of good. So that's what I'm jamming out to right now. Yeah. Oh, I like to brag about this. I have the best gym playlist that is 100% clean Christian rap, and it is so good. It is a hardcore playlist, but it is my gym. I call it Clean Gym Jams is what I call it on my Spotify, and it's a good playlist.
No, see, I drive a lot, so I have a road trip vibes playlist, and that's it. And it has everything possibly that could ever feed your spirit in.
Oh, I love it. Sometimes, like I make when I put on old playlists, I'm like jamming out to it. I'm like, dang, this is good. Like, good job on me. Like, past me, because this like playlist hits. It just hits. Yeah. It's everything that I love. And it helps me like rediscover what I used to love. Anyways.
And so I don't do that. In fact, every time I go to create a playlist, I delete the old one, because I've probably become tired. But the only beautiful thing about that is that I can now put in the songs that I wanted to hear that I didn't hear the last time. And then I can get rid of the songs that I overplayed and just kept going back and repeated. And so I've always like deleted my older playlist and created a new one. That way I could have something brand new.
I could never do that. I might be a little bit of a hoarder even when it comes to my music. Mari, thank you so much for joining us. I always like to wrap up the conversation by asking our guest, what is one faith practice or discipline that our audience members could just take and walk away with and implement in their life today, tomorrow, next week, to help them grow in relationship with God?
Take what you have and run with it, because if you start seeking for all of the things you don't have, what you dream of and what you envision for your future will slowly or quickly begin to just disintegrate into the air. How you envision and how you dreamed of it, it'll all just start falling away because you wish you had these things. And the truth is you don't. And you just that dream and vision just start fading away for you. Take what you have and grow with what you have.
Yeah.
At 16 years old, I grabbed my first computer and bought my own instruments and things like that. And now I travel the country doing what I do. And the beauty of that is, and I'm only 20 years old. So in all of that, I've been able to, in the past 4 years, just see what God's done in my life flourish. So 6 years ago, I was in the middle of foster care, and now I get to do what I do. But statistics say that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But I took what I had and I grabbed people and mentors and leaders and pastors who even saw what I saw in myself or saw more than what I seen in myself. And they helped me flourish in what I did have. Yeah. Even in the little, they helped me take what I did have and grow with that. And so if I could give you any piece of advice, it's just take what you do have, because God blessed you with what you have. So clearly, in some way, form, or fashion, you have exactly what you need to get to where you need to go.
I love that so much. Mari, thank you so much for joining us. Now, where can people find you if they want to connect and hear more from you?
So my website is mariramsey.com and my Instagram is Mari Ramsey Official. Just go follow me or go check out the website. There's just different resources on each.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. This was such a pleasure and a lot of fun, despite whatever the enemy was trying to play with my Wi-Fi that's going on in my house.
Right.
Not today, Satan. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and hit those 5 stars, and make sure to tune in next week.